It's much more cagey. What do you make of that? Has it altered your predictions in any way?
No, I mean, I guess my overall match prediction was that we will have a Magnus Carlsen playing in the final. I think he's the favorite. Although I did talk to Fabi, I was like, man, get us Armageddon today. Let's go. So rooting for him to get us all the chess he can. This position actually looks pretty tame, although we did just see Fabi play f4. That's new since the last time I looked. And the first thing that jumps out to me is that Magnus is also down significantly on the clock. So, okay. Maybe this is the start of Fabi pressing, and you have to get aggressive against Magnus, right? Wesley sacked a piece against Magnus. That's how you beat him, right? You got to swing at the king and don't miss. So I think putting pressure on Magnus with white. Look at this. I'm liking it.
Danny,
we see the advantage growing here, and Magnus down on time.
Danny, you get a Wood Harris video, and suddenly you're just going to be quoting the wire the whole time. But, you just said that he has to come after Magnus. And what would you make of Fabi's play yesterday? And not just what would you make. Did you speak to him? I know he lost set 1, but how was he feeling considering he beat Magnus 2 games in a row?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can say this now. There was day 2 of this event. Fabi was actually feeling pretty under the weather. And if you remember, that was a day that he did not play well. He started out 2-0 and then went 0-2 on day 2 of the round robin. Didn't want to talk about that, especially if Fabi didn't recover. But he said he's feeling much better now. He was sipping some tea and he seemed in good spirits. And I think that from an athlete's mindset, right, you're always focusing on a narrative that can get you to perform at your best. And I think Fabi knows he lost, but he lost to Magnus Carlsen, who is known for doing things like that. But objectively, did Fabiano play just as good a chess, if not better chess, than Magnus in a lot of the positions, right? I mean, it was topsy-turvy. Fabi kind of beat himself, too. So yeah, I think he did play well, and look at this now. I mean, he just... Actually, as I'm talking about the mindset, I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, I think he's just about to blow Magnus off the board. Is knight f5 coming? How do you stop this?
Danny, Fabi's about to blow Magnus off the board, and it looks like Wesley is about to blow Nordebek off the board. Crazy action going on. We're going to deep dive into this and check in with you really soon. But guys, take this away. Over the last couple of moves, beep has hit the fan. Sorry.
Yeah, a lot has gone down just in the last few moments. Magnus Carlsen has lost control. I don't want to say blunder because it's been a series of small inaccuracies from Magnus Carlsen, but he's allowed White's rook to penetrate, to infiltrate to the 7th rank. On the left board on your screens right now, look at that white rook. It's got the black king in its sights. It's got the black queen in its sights. The bishop is pinned. Knight f5, as Danny mentioned, is just lights out. It's unstoppable, pretty much. Meanwhile, on the other board, Wesley So's given up his queen. What has he got in return for it? He's got a rook, bishop, and 2 pawns, and it's the power of those 2 pawns. But I'm going to say that actually the Wesley So board is far from decided for now, because a queen is a queen, White's queen is active. And there we see the evaluation bar rising up slightly. Abdustorov not dead yet, but Magnus, I think he's busted.
Still some life for Nordebek on the right-hand screen, although Wesley is in the driver's seat. But I think Magnus is busted because he had to break the pin towards his queen. Now that allows the white queen to slide into the e6 square, and those light squares in front of the black king are... And all 3 white pieces are attacking, and black, I don't think, is going to be able to fend it off.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. Queen and knight combo, the most devastating attacking duo out there. But he has a rook as well. And queen, knight, rook. Black's king is bare, not going to survive. I've never seen Magnus get knocked out this kind of smoothly. Fabiano hasn't even done anything too special. He pushed a pawn to f4 at the right moment, broke open lines, and Magnus has collapsed pretty much. He just needs to put the finishing touches on. But 6 minutes for Fabi, 1 for Magnus.
Just a few minutes ago, just a few moments ago, just a few moves ago, it looked like everything was fine for Magnus Carlsen, and then suddenly the position just explodes. Fabi's winning. David, I'd love to see what happened. Where did Magnus go wrong? And it looks like the moves are coming in really quickly. Magnus with about a minute on the clock. So perhaps you'd show us later what really happened there, because I don't know what this turnaround's about. How did he get here?
It just seems easy now. I mean, that queen just slid in. The bishop's under attack. If the bishop slides back to defend the king, then the knight just hops in. So all 3 of White's pieces are going to go for the black king. I don't know how it could possibly survive.
Yeah, you need a miracle now. There's just 0 counterplay against White's king. However, White's king in the Caruana game has a beautiful hiding spot, a beautiful safe haven on h2. And normally in these positions, you will not be able to defend passively. Here, there's no active defense either. look at Magnus's pieces. How sad is this? The black bishop, black queen, black rook, all on their back rank. 2 of them on their starting squares, and white's knight is going to join the party. This one looks almost over. There's already some really nice checkmating patterns in the air.
It's looking so strong. Once that knight lands on h5 or f5, the only thing that I think you need to watch out from white could be that not allowing black's rook to that check on c1, and perhaps black's queen jumping into an attack from the g file. Are those resources available to black in these positions?
They are, and that's why I'm advocating on the left-hand side of our screens, everyone, that Fabiano's knight goes to the right-hand side of the board. Instead of hopping into f5, you go into h5, so you can deliver a vicious check on the f6 square and get the black king in a mating net. I actually think knight f5, which is maybe the more natural move. If you're playing on seconds, you go towards the center. But I think that's wrong because it doesn't afford the knight a check on the next turn. And I just want to point out that Wesley So, I mean, he's doing everything correctly. He has those bishop, rook, and 2 pawns, and for now, Nordebek is stopping them, but I think as soon as he gets his rook behind the a-pawn, he can just throw that pawn forward, close his eyes, and get a new queen.
Yeah, and that bishop in c3, it is such a strong piece controlling that a1 square. Once that a-pawn starts moving forward, there's nothing that's going to stop it, and I think we're going to see that happen. Wesley does it at the cost of a pawn, but this pawn's going to turn into a queen.
Yeah, and he's trying to fight Abdusatorov. He's going to try and blockade black's passed pawn on that right board with his own queen, but queens are the worst blockaders in chess. Knights are the best blockaders, queens are the worst. Queens are simply just too powerful, too valuable. You're essentially wasting the best piece with white for just a black pawn, and eventually the queen will get booted out of a2 anyway. So Wesley, he's just made it look simple. I've got to say, Wesley at his best makes chess look easy.
If white was to put that queen on a2, you simply slide the other rook to the b file and get it down to the second rank, kicking that queen out of that defensive square. Rook b8, rook b2, and it's happening.
It's unstoppable. And also, Nordebek is down to his final 15 seconds. Rook b2, pawn a2, it's just game over. It's so simple, as you said. I mean, Wesley makes it look simple, but Nordebek helped him out by playing very ambitious in a moment where he should have signed the peace treaty.
And I'm really, I think it's very, and this one ends, Wesley So resigns and Nordebek strikes. Sorry, I'm going to take that back. For Nordebek, he has to win both to take it to Armageddon. And this one, it looks like Fabi's ready to strike back, a very critical moment. And I was just about to say before that game ended that Fabi, he makes the wrong knight jump, that he slowed down, and now the queen comes to g5, and this was the idea that we were advocating for.
Wow, and suddenly black is alive. There's some counterplay. White is still doing well, but big threat in the position. Black wants to drop a queen into f4 with a check. He retreats his knight, Fabiano. He's setting a trap of his own. This knight is poisoned, untouchable. If black plays queen takes knight right now, white's queen slides back to the f5 square with check, and black gets checkmated next turn. Rook takes bishop will come with a deadly blow. Wow, this is really crazy. This is what Fabiano's relying on, but it's not the best. Maybe black can hold on.
He opened up 2 things at the same time. The f5 square for his queen, as you were saying, with check. Also, the rook now covers that f4 square. So the bishop jumps out for Magnus Carlsen. He's still in this game. If that bishop can wrap around, because there are no checks against the black king, unless you want to trade queens, which I don't think you do, that black bishop is about to wrap around and go harass the white king.
Ooh, 12 seconds for Magnus, though. Fabiano, it's as if he's trying to be too clever. He's trying to find some really sophisticated way to knock out his opponent when he could have just done it brute force. One knight jump the other direction, and probably it would have been checkmate within 3 or 4 moves. But now Magnus is alive.
Yeah, and he took a good 3-minute think for that one, and it just felt as if Fabi's going to find the right way forward. And the big difference was that the knight from h5 could have arrived on a check on that f6 square, which probably would have wrapped up the game by now. But again, now Fabi with the advantage, but he has to find it all over again. Magnus has got a brutal idea of bringing the bishop onto an attack. A check on f4 would actually be game over for Fabi.
Oof, yeah. I think he has to act quickly here, Fabiano. The white knight is just on a bit of an odd square. It's done a little dance around the board. He should have just been using his inner vision and trying to plant it on the f6 square, its ideal post. And now it does drop back, but allows the black queen to offer a queen trade. And I said no defenders around the black king. Suddenly black's queen is doing a great job of holding the squares.
He's going to trade. He's going to liquidate right now, because after the queen trade, he can take that central pawn with his knight with check while protecting his rook. So it may not be easy to convert that advantage, especially with the white king being a bit vulnerable, and that b2 pawn, when there are pawns on both sides of the board, bishops usually are better than knights. But Fabi, he can steal a pawn here. I'm looking at his face, though. He doesn't look that happy with his decision.
And I wonder if it's because he missed the bishop move, because his retreating knight to h4, he played it really quickly. And if you just think about it, in the last 3 moves, that white knight from g3 has just landed on f3. Instead of delivering checkmate, it's become a defensive piece. Now Fabi's best chance is to go into an endgame with an extra pawn, but he'll have to show some good technique, when in fact he could be checkmating Magnus right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. He knows, he would have had an inner feeling. He had 3 attacking pieces. He knows he could have got close to checkmate. Now, an endgame against the world's best ever endgame player. Yes, you might have an extra pawn, but it's not a stable extra pawn. Black's rook is so active, Black's bishop is active. White's b2 pawn over there on the queen side might well drop off in the near future. And rook and bishop do kind of a great job against rook and knight in general. So, I think it's momentum Black right now. And look at the clock times. From 6 extra minutes, it's now almost level.
I was about to say that before, Magnus was playing bullet while Fabi was playing blitz. Now we're about to be in a time scramble. Fabi, he needs to be careful here. He should take that queen, take the pawn e5, and try to work that endgame magic, because he's really spending so much time at this stage. He's about to hit 30 seconds.
And he needs to make a decision fast. And when queens are off the board, your decisions can be more intuitive. But if he decides to keep the queens on the board, he'll have to rely a bit more on calculation. And he doesn't have time for that. He finally takes a decision he should have taken in seconds, grabs that pawn on e5. All right, Fabi, blitz out the move now.
Yeah, there's a big threat. Black's bishop is actually trying to slide back to d6. The white king, white knight are on the same dark square diagonal, so he has to stop it. He does. Brilliant move there from Fabiano Caruana, but again, he's looking a bit slow with his decisions when it's pretty much forced moves. And Magnus creating counterplay. White's b2 pawn is weak. It's going to drop off. It might become a race.
And I see the eval bar give White a big advantage, but I think from a practical perspective, it's not clear to the players. It's going to be a race between Fabi's E center pawn and Magnus's B pawn down the board. He doesn't grab it immediately, comes back with the bishop, threatening a big check on f4, which would have picked up the knight.
And now he's going to grab the pawn. So his bishop was in the rook's line of sight. So, gives a check first. But now the white king can just step, I think, forward at any moment here. He's going into the center. So as long as Fabi doesn't walk into any kind of bishop f2 check, which would win the rook, he does have these 2 pawns in the center. So move your rook out the way, start throwing your pawns forward.
Now it's level material. White has 2 connected pass pawns in the center, but they take a while to mobilize. One of them's running up the board now, but Black's B pawn looks like the quickest of all. And, okay, the white rook stops it advancing for now, but the bishop drops back. This one is anyone's game. Yes, the evaluation bar says winning for White, but Magnus, he's saved a far worse position. This feels like the best he's had in a while.
But it is even material if we just count the pawns. But White has 2 unopposed passed pawns in the center. And look at the eval bar. It's sky high. How do you actually stop these pawns? He brings the king out of the pin. The knight now is free to move. And he pushed e5. And now both of the pawns, they're rumbling down the board. One of them is going to become a queen.
For a chance in this match, Fabi has to finish this job. He is so close to a game win, which will put him in a great situation to make a comeback in set 2. And he blunders with the most natural-looking check on h4.
Wow, now Black can give a couple of checks from behind, and the white e-pawn was actually dropping. Wow, Magnus even gives a check with a pawn stronger, perhaps. He gives another check, and White's pawns are collapsing. Fabiano, has he blown the win?
Oh my gosh. Fabi with the knight moves. It's just all gone wrong, and now Magnus grabs the pawn on e5. White's king can take it, but Black's rook takes the knight. Instead, he's threatening to queen. Magnus comes back with the bishop, defending the d8 square.
And for Fabiano, he needs to be careful not to lose this game at this stage. If somehow he drops that d pawn, that would be a disaster. And Magnus, he's pressing for some winning chances of his own. He's pushing his pawns up the board.
This is so reminiscent of their game 1. Fabi with the white pieces up a queen, lost in the end with the black pieces. With this one as well, he was winning throughout, and now it's him who's fighting for a draw.
Yeah, White is fighting for his life, but White does have a threat. White is threatening a rook check on b5 and then to slide the rook across to d5 to block the black rook. Magnus's king dodges. Fabiano living on the edge here. And, okay, Black sacrifices a rook for the pawn. Can White's rook stop the black pawns? This should now be a draw, I think, but
Barely, because
Magnus is playing for it.
Yeah, Magnus is playing for a win, but White has a check at some moment. So it looks like the black pawns are unstoppable. You push the h pawn off the board, but he gives that check right now. So the black king, it can't go to h2. It's shielded by its own pawn, but the pin along the second rank. And if you go king h1, rook check, and promote, the white king is just in time to scoop up that final black pawn.
It looks like it will be the case, but Magnus makes Fabi sweat. He doesn't go for the direct draw line, as Robert was pointing out, pushes the pawn. But now White's king is in time to pick up the last remaining pawn. And a king versus king. What a fight. Even Fabi can't believe it. Both players with a smile on their face. That was an up and down battle, and Magnus survives against Fabi. The match stays level.
Wow, their heart rates must be sky high right now. Fabiano feeling frustrated, disappointed. For most of the game, he was dictating things. We saw a bit of a raised eyebrow from him there. Magnus, he might not be showing it, but he is relieved.
And there was a smile, but it's like that meme with the guy in the corner and he's smiling on the outside, but it's a mask. Inside, he's crying. Fabiano Caruana's had so many chances.